Grace and Friends.
Well, switching gears now. We want to move on to fighting over inheritance. It's a major issue that tears families apart.
And our next guest is going to help your family avoid it, at least try to. Les Kotzer is the author of The Family Fight. And Les, we were talking about this off camera before we were in commercial, or we were in commercial.
Yes.
And one of the questions we had when we were talking to you about this was the fact that you hear about these fights. A lot of times, of course, they're in families that are more well known throughout the country, famous families and such, because someone feels left out or feels like the will wasn't fair. So how do you avoid that if you're someone who's writing a will?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to write the will. If you don't write the will, the state will write one for you, and it won't always be the way you want it. The bottom line is that you have to speak to your kids. We have a website called familyfight.com, and if people want to read stories about fighting and about inequality or kids thinking that they're not getting the same thing as the other kids, you've got to read some of those stories on our website. And people can email us their stories or read other people's stories as well to learn from that.
And one of your points, I think, in the book is that you don't have to treat all of your kids equally in
Absolutely.
will.
Because what if one of your kids was a caregiver? How fair is it if that caregiver who's helping you, doing everything for you, gets exactly the same as the kids who live in Europe who call you once a year on Mother's Day? How fair is that? How's she or he going to feel when that will is read and she gets exactly the same?
But you do have to spell it out. If you're not going to treat them all equally, you have to spell it out so that somebody doesn't feel,
Absolutely. My law practice is all about avoiding family fighting. That's what my skill is. And I'm telling people you have to do the will. You have to go to a lawyer. You have to plan properly. It breaks my heart when I see these families ripped apart. Some of the people that come in, some of the stories on the website, some of the calls I get when I'm on radio shows, it tears you apart. These are kids that shared childhood together who are now not talking to each other. And quite often it's because of the parents not planning
And you
properly.
mentioned if you don't write a will, the state will write one for you, and then you have the whole tax problem coming in because the state's going to take as much tax money as it possibly can.
Well, again, my practice is not about saving taxes, it's about saving families, and that's what the book is about. You mentioned the book is called The Family Fight, but the most important part is the subtitle, Planning to Avoid It. It's all about trying to plan to avoid fighting, destruction, tearing your family apart.
So give us some tips. What can you do to make sure that there isn't a fight and that your will is not contested later?
Well, number one, fighting is not just over money, it's also over memories. How do you divide a painting on the wall or a table in the hall? One of the things that I've done to try to help people communicate, I've written music. I'm a professional songwriter, and I wrote it with some famous people, Louis Manet and Wendy Watson. They helped me write a CD of music to try to help people talk, communicate, and people, again, can see that on the website, hear some of the songs on the website.
Now, I know in our family, some of our siblings and relatives, always say, oh, come on, Mom and Dad, you're being morbid. You're talking about stuff you want to give us. But I remember with my grandmother, she would actually go around and see who wanted what, just so she had an idea of what to put in her will when it became to furniture, because you mentioned stuff is just as important as money.
Absolutely. How do you divide these memories? We all grew up in that home together. How do we say, we had a fight in my office over a howdy-doody lunchbox. Two brothers were fighting over this lunchbox and Dad's trophy. It ended the relationship between the brothers, who were once close. I want people to be close. I want parents to plan. I want them to have the ammunition. And, the fact is, that's why I wrote a book, to try to give people plain language information that they need before going to their attorney. It's all about saving your family, and people have to read this kind of stuff because people call me on shows and they don't know what an executor is. They don't know what a will means. They don't know what power of attorney means. They don't know who to appoint. They don't know all these issues. I thought to myself, all these books out there are all about saving taxes. Let's talk about saving the most important asset we have, our family.
And very quickly, we have less than 30 seconds, but you don't recommend doing this, a handmade will on your own. You need some legal advice.
Do it with a lawyer. And again, go to thefamilyfight.com and read some of those stories, and it'll just shock you. And again, you can get the book on that website as well.
Okay, Les Kotzer, thank you for all that information. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.